Good morning, everybody. This is Lynn from A Bit of Birdsong. I have a journal here that I am just starting today. I wanted a springtime journal, and I love to write. I like to keep track of what happens every day. For a while, I can honestly say I was a little bit challenged with the junk journal concept because the pages can get so busy. It doesn't feel as easy to read sometimes if a person wants just a writing journal. And yet I'm addicted, at least for now, to this whole concept of art journaling, junk journaling, and concept journals. They jump the bounds of journal, and some of the books, they turn into books, and they're collectibles. And I know we all know that. For this journal, I wanted to start something that I can work on for about a month, very similar to the December daily. And I have more of these journals. I made up 10 of these. I'm taking one, so I have 9 more. I want to do a Journal with Me series, sort of like I did in December with the December daily. But I want to explore different ways to embellish and write on pages. So I'm going to be doing that I'm not going to commit to every day because I do work really hard at my job away from home. And in fact, I was just emailing someone this morning. I set a record on Saturday, a personal record for me. I walked 5 miles at work. I keep track of my steps, and it is all on concrete. So I'm just really wiped out. The first day that I'm off from those 3 days of working, I am tired, but I still get things done. In fact, yesterday I spent a lot of time on these journals, and I loved it. That's my decompression. What do they call it? When the divers get into those tanks, is it a decompression tank? I don't know, but that sounds good for this. So to start with, these journals, I won't go into a lot of it because I'm going to have a video showing the journals. The vintage quilted cover, it does have some wear to it. I washed it before I used it, but it's just going to add to what we're doing. The layering, mine actually has a little tear in it. That's why I chose this one for myself. And you know what? I think it would be so sweet just to stitch that up with a needle and thread. And every layer adds to the appeal of a journal. The more I see that, the more I realize that that's true. Of course, you can overdo things. So getting into this, I want to just work on this front page. And then I won't do any more videos in this series until the journals have gone out and we're working on the series. But this is stitched in. And it's stitched so that you can still use this pocket. I went around this oval so that things don't get caught in here. So these journals are all constructed the same. They have the same number of pages, the same types of pages. On this page, I'm not sure how it would look to distress this with a darker color. I don't know. I'm going to pull out some of my go-tos for this, and we will talk about ways to work on pages. I also have my gesso out and my handy dandy paintbrush. I know the first thing I want to do is take this brush that's a little bit damp and put some distressing right in the center. And you just have to be careful doing this on really delicate pages. This is cardstock. But getting any kind of dampness along the spine where these pages have already been folded and where you've got the stitches through them, you can run the risk of causing the pages to get so weak that they tear away. So you don't want to do that. I don't use a lot of water on this. The brush is not super wet. But I do like to distress some in that area. That's just me. And then a lot of times I will take this and get all the pages at one time. I will do individual pages again later, but for now I do like to do this as I'm working through the book. And that's my Tim Holtz Distress ink. And then where it just comes up onto the page, need a little bit more dampness on that brush. I'll go along and just you really learn a lot working with different types of paper. Cardstock, it can paper doesn't look so wonderful after if you work with it too much with water, and it starts to rip almost, and then the layer looks real coarse, and like the fibers of the paper start to come loose, I guess. I have some gesso here too, as I mentioned, so I need to shake it. So let me tell you something interesting. This little mark conforms to ASTM D4236. I used to work in the office that put that stamp on things. And you will notice sometimes on children's art material, it'll say something about the ACMI, where it's been evaluated by them, and that's the Arts and Crafts Materials Institute. Who would ever know that there was a small little office over at Duke University where toxicologists worked full-time to evaluate art products? Isn't that interesting? So I worked in that office, and we would get the neatest samples in, and sometimes when they were done, we would be allowed to keep some things. It was neat. It wasn't my cup of tea forever. That wasn't my forever job, but I learned so much. So I'm just gonna put some gesso on this page, and I want it to feel I don't want it to look so contrived, and just work with things and get it the way you want it to be. There's a lot there. Don't want too much on that edge. And I like a mixture of, like, when this is working in with that stain, kind of blends the colors. Sometimes though, once you put gesso down, I want to prop this side up with this stamp a little bit. What was I going to say? Once the gesso dries, it doesn't always take the distress ink so easily. It'll look like it's going on, and then when it dries, it kind of loses its color. I like stamps with lettering as well. So I'm just going to put a couple of these on here and go back with the brush. I try not to get a lot of water on things that I print because I don't have a laser printer. I have just an inkjet, and I love my printer. I'm so grateful to even have a printer, and even though it fights me sometimes, it works, so I'm thankful. But I would love to have a laser printer. Another thing I wanted to do here on this first page is to date this one when it started. And I've been thinking about that. I'm not sure if I want to use a stamp. I don't really have a stamp that has the year. This just has the days. So I think I'm going to write a little note to go on that. And another thing I want to work on in this series is lettering. My handwriting has never been the most beautiful handwriting. I love to see beautiful handwriting, and some people have it just so naturally. And especially since I haven't been up long. Be gone on March 18th, 2019. So let's just tear. And it's the funniest thing, little things can make a big difference in your page. If you're tearing something with an image on it, the way you pull this paper will determine how much of the, you can get the colored top of the image to show, or that white underlayer. If you pull up, you're going to get the white underlayer, but if you pull back, it's usually prettier, I think. So I want to put that there. I definitely want to have the date on here. I'm going to use some tacky glue for this. Yeah, that toxicology office was really interesting. They also evaluated poison cases, getting exposed to environmental toxins and heavy-duty chemicals and things like that. It really, really opened my eyes about using household cleaners the wrong way and things like that. You have to be so careful. You only have one body, one liver, one set of lungs, and one brain. So, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So I do want to go around the edge of that. Oh, I hear the birds outside. Something else I like to do is, and I'm really, really, really hard on my stamp pads. This one's fairly new, but you can see it already has some use. And I mean, these, I don't use any other ink most of the time. These are so wonderful. I've got that one. And I need to get another. I have a couple of these, the vintage photo color. But I do get water in mine, and you can see I'm not always careful about keeping brushes clean. That still looks like it's got some of the white in it. But sometimes I will just take, do that, and I feel like at least I'm pulling some of the top layer of all this stuff I've mixed in. And you know what? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Actually, you know how I want to do this? Sometimes I get water in the brush and just squeeze it out on the page. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter, like, if it runs, so I don't want to really get any on her face. So let me just get something to cover that up. I'm just going to close it. I will just probably leave it closed and let that dry and leave some staining. I really like that. I want some more staining in the corner. So I've got my date. We've just pulled off a little piece of paper to put the date in and get a little bit more color. Something else that's really neat, let me go ahead and show you this. If you take a brush that's kind of wet, once you stamp, put a whole stamp on there, you can, especially if you do it when you've just stamped, you can spread that ink around and it won't be so dark. And you can already see where the gesso is. It doesn't really grab this ink as well. But I can get that corner up there. You can just distress as much as you want to, or as little. I think I will, let me go to the dry, and be sure and dry this cap, the lid to the ink, dry it before you put it back on. This is my towel that stays in my lap. Can you tell that it's covered with everything under the sun? Wonder how many journals that has in it. It's a good old towel. I am going to take some, oh, they both fell. I do want to get some distressing on here. And I do a lot of distressing. You know, that's not for everybody. If you don't like that, you don't have to do that part. We're going to do a lot of other techniques and prompts in this series. This series is also going to be about how you can take a journal. Two people can have the same journal and they're not going to come out the same because you're going to do what you like. I'm starting to like this more and more. I wonder if I could, I don't really want to get on this. I printed this, so I'm not going to get a lot of water on that. I'm not going to get any water on that. If I did, well, actually, you know what? I changed my mind because I want to show you. We'll look at this later. I am going to put a spot of water just right on an edge. Let me, soak up a little bit of that. You'll see later what it does to that ink. I just don't want to get anything right on her face. This was a gorgeous, gorgeous old, I found a lot of old, they looked almost like photographs, but I think they were prints from something. But this one, you can see a little line right around her face, and that is where the layers were coming apart. That one really needed to be scanned. I mean, it was not a moment too soon for that one, because it's not far from falling apart, and then it would have been lost forever. So I did get that lovely image. Let's unravel that just a tiny bit, just because I like that. And I'm just going to cut it right here. Another thing I want to do, I love this dragonfly stamp. I would like to have another dragonfly stamp. I'm going to get one at some point. We have a lot of stamps at work. I need to just see what's there. So I want that there. I stay so busy at work. I don't really shop while I'm working. Taking care of my customers. Putting things out on the floor. Just put a little bit of, so I do like that. And of course that's a vintage linen. Don't be afraid to distress fabric either. And if you go across something like, that looks like dirt instead of ink, just go back with some water. And as long as you're not getting on something that the water's going to ruin, like that will dry and it'll be pretty. But just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to use things. So this is mostly water that I'm putting on here now, and there is just enough ink in the brush to give it a just an older look. There was more ink up here, as you could see. I don't really want to turn the flowers too dark. And again, I don't want it to feel contrived and just false, you know. If you do something that you don't like the way it's going, just use some water. See, that's going to become so faint. I know what it is. I think you can still tell that it was a dragonfly. I don't know if I want to leave those white spots there. Something else. Let's just try a touch of this, just a little bit of this yellow. That's pretty. And then go back with some darker. I knew I would do this. I've ended up doing the whole pocket. I just think it's so pretty. And of course this page is going to dry, and I don't want to distress everything, but I do really like that a lot. So, you know, don't, if you do something like putting this stamp on and then just freeze and say, oh, it's horrible, keep working with it. My motto for myself is that if I don't like it, it's not done yet. And just keep going. Layering and collage is so easy that way. I am going to add my name to that. I think I want just a tiny bit of foliage there. I have this large stamp. It's got a lot of different things on it, but I don't want everything that's on here. So I'm going to wipe it off gently and make sure that there's not a lot of ink. And I will take my brush and put ink on the spot that I want to use. Yeah, I'll use that one. And this one's at the edge too, so it's going to make it a little easier. And I'm going to just put that there and push with my hand from the other side to make sure it gets on there. Yeah, I like that. That's going to lighten too as it dries because of the gesso. I have figured that out. You can see how the gesso has lightened everything. I think that's enough. I'm going to stop there. I may come back later to that page, but for now, I'm going to stop. And since this is so very wet, I mean, I could go ahead and close it, but I really don't want this page to pull that ink out. I want all of this ink to stay right there because I really like the way that looks. So I'm going to leave it open to dry. Sometimes I close them if I have things that I would like to mirror on the other page. So that is the little journal with me for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to have feedback if there are things you want to see. Of course, the next video in the series will be working on the next spread, and we are going to work on a couple of pages at a time. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.